Yeah.
5, 4, 3.
Yeah.
Yeah.
5, 4, 3.
I've actually worked in
You're
TV
live on
where
Channel
they-
5.
I've actually seen that be
When they
done
do
in
the silent
TV.
2 and
Yeah,
1 countdown.
but they're very casual. So okay, guys, we're gonna go in 5, 4, and the presenter does this thing when they go. Welcome back to the thing.
If you're joining us now, do you remember that bit in the trip?
Minister Liz Truss.
Yeah, do you remember that bit in the trip where they talk about the way you hear your name on the news? There's the good way and the bad way and the way you don't want. So the good
No,
way is...
can't remember.
So it was about Steve Coogan, so it's like...
Oh, I think-
So the good way is the actor and director, Steve Coogan, has... And that sounds nice. It means
Yeah.
like he's probably opened like a charity centre or something.
Actor and director.
No, the sad one is the actor and director, Steve Coogan, right?
Yeah.
The one you don't want is the actor and director, Steve Coogan.
All of a sudden
this like
questions.
inquisitive.
Yeah, it's like, well, why
That
did they
means
have
you've been
that career
arrested.
in the first
Yeah,
place?
the actor
This
and
man was an
director.
actor and director?
Yeah.
Steve Coogan.
Actually, as far as I'm aware, Steve Coogan hasn't directed anything.
Yeah, I was
think
gonna
actor
say,
and comedian.
yeah,
but
sure.
it's the inquisitive. You know when you hear it, you know it sets the tone immediately for the story.
It's the arrogance that like the newsreader kind of knew all along.
Yeah.
That like actor and director, disgraced producer.
Now Hollywood presenter
Yeah.
himself wants to do this. Yeah,
Now he said that after having joined the Scientology
you've gone.
church,
You sound like you've gone the intonation of Christopher Walken. You know now having joined the Scientology
director.
church.
Steve
It's
Coogan.
crazy.
I love this time with Alan Partridge. It's so good.
I actually like marvel at his performance.
It's
The
brilliant.
jokes are so quick in that show,
It's
but on
dense.
every single level, you have the scripted jokes,
Yes.
you have the visual jokes, you have the performance jokes. That
Yeah.
he's obviously, I know it's all scripted, but like there's so many different layers to what's happening on screen at one time. It's like
I've watched some of those episodes through like 3 times, and I
Yeah.
still get new stuff out of it. It's like when you see a film like Dodgeball for the first time, like, oh, there's all these jokes I never saw, but that is like fine-tooth comb. There's jokes in everything I never saw. My
Yeah.
favorite one is his relationship with that reporter who never accepts anything he says.
Lonnie
true.
Adefope,
It's
yeah.
so good.
My brother pointed out one that I really liked, which is again so quick and you'll miss it. He's at the digiboard with Simon Denton.
Yeah.
And he's like, talking about like heroes, how like old people are heroes, and it's like, we've got this one from London. No one ever talks about like Steve Woodward from Putney, who sheltered 16 Jewish women in his basement in Putney for 5 years during the war. And then it was like, then Alan Partridge is like, like, in Putney? And you can tell he's thinking, like, that didn't sound right at all. It's like completely dodgy. I've completely butchered that joke, obviously, because it's, like we just said, it's
No, I know
engineered
what
and
you mean.
written perfectly and not to be rehashed by me. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I have a new one for us.
Oh, yeah.
Which is like a new way to annoy people at the cinema, which I'd never experienced before. You know those digital Casio watches that on the hour, every hour go deet deet?
Yep, I've had that.
I don't know who in their right mind, since the invention of the smartphone, needs to have a watch that tells you on the hour, every hour, hello,
Yeah.
it's 9 o'clock. So it's like an early morning screening of a film, and it was like an 8:30 start. So at 9 o'clock, I hear the woman next to me, deet deet, and I'm like,
Oh, no, she was next to you.
she's literally next to me. And I know I check my watch and I'm like, it's 9 o'clock. That means in an hour, that's going to
Yeah,
go
yeah,
off
yeah,
again.
yeah.
And then I spent the entire film thinking, it's going to go. And then at 10 o'clock, doot, doot. I was like, fuck.
You know
What do you need? Who wants that? What are you doing that's so important that you need to know when the hour starts?
Yeah, and also, like, our world is not, like, our world is measured enough. No one is going, I tell you what, we need to measure everything a little bit more. I need to know exactly
Scheduled.
when the hour, like...
Does that happen all night? Do you wear your watch? I just don't get it. I'm annoyed when people's phones go off loudly now. I'm like, we've moved past that. Phones shouldn't really ring.
No, yeah,
It's
I
actually
always have my
unbecoming
phone
for
on
a phone to ring.
silent.
My dad's phone is on the loudest setting, and it's got the old phone ringtone.
Do you know what I don't like is when people have just stopped having phone calls to their ear. They just have them in front of them, like they're on The Apprentice, and it's on speaker.
Yeah.
Hey, what do you want for dinner?
Your sub-team leader, Craig.
I just thought we could get some chicken or something. Yeah, but what do you think? Why? What, and like, everyone
5
can
people in
hear.
the room.
Why,
Yeah.
I hate that. And the greatest sin of all is public FaceTime.
Not okay, yeah. Well,
Yeah.
no, I think the rule...
With headphones is okay.
The rule is always with phone calls, voice notes, is that you can't talk louder than the volume if you were talking to someone in person next to you. So as soon as you're like, hi, that all of a sudden now it's offensive, but it can't go louder than how I would.
But also it's the
speak
fact
to
that
a person.
because you can't hear the opposite end of the conversation, you've just got this person going, hi.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I know.
No, I told him he shouldn't have done it.
Yeah. We'll tell him to put it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it'll clear up in a few days.
You can call the police. They're not going to do anything.
Anyway, what's been happening then? So I went to Secret Cinema again last night.
Yes. How was it?
You know me. I like to go. We talked about it before earlier this year when I went to Dirty Dancing. So I went to Guardians of the Galaxy yesterday.
Nice.
Which is not one I would typically go for. Secret Cinema have sort of slowly moved quite mainstream recently.
Okay.
And I was hoping they would eventually go back to doing the cool films that they used to, like Blade Runner and Moulin Rouge.
You little film
Back to
buff
the
there.
Future.
Like, oh, well, of course, this is like the old ones that used to do.
But, it was a present and I went and we did have a great time. It was fantastic. But in preparing to watch it...
Blue face paint all over your body?
No. I actually...
Green, a Gamora green?
No, I was just like a generic Ravager. It was actually very minimal costume. Didn't need to buy anything. It was very good. No, but in the run-up to going, we watched Guardians 1 again, right? Which I've always really liked.
Wait, was it not... did you not see Guardians?
Oh, sorry. For this one, for some reason, it was Guardians 2, and there was two types of tickets. You could buy film and event, or just event. And we bought just event because we're less keen on Guardians 2.
Yeah.
Which is fine. And also, for that reason, we just went for the event, right? But we thought, get us in the mood, let's watch Guardians 1 again. And which we did, and that's probably the 4th or 5th time I've seen it.
Wow, okay.
And all positive stuff.
Yeah.
I was just reminded that film just really works. Just absolutely, and as its own standalone thing. It's got so much happening in it, so much fun.
I love that prison break scene.
Yeah.
That's when the film really builds and I think you're in and you're there with the comic timing and when they're flying out.
Yeah.
I feel like I was like, God, I'm really enjoying this film.
And I think it's a testament to a film that on 4th, 5th viewing, that I can still get as much out of it and still enjoy it.
Yeah.
It's working really well.
2014 it came out?
That's the thing. 8 years, that was the first film I ever went to the cinema to see on my own.
Oh, okay.
And I remember really like in the middle of the day in the summer. And I remember thinking, and there was that thing that summer of like everyone had seen it and was like, oh, everyone was really surprised. Like, I feel like I've seen a true blockbuster summer film and everyone was just in a great mood about it. But what I also noticed was, I know we talk about Marvel a bit and we trash them a little bit. Sorry, but we've discussed them.
We've been a bit cynical.
We have been a bit cynical recently. But the thing is, what I realized in Guardians 1 is they do so many things that we now associate as being bad things that Marvel do. So like, for example, that was a very strange noise we just
was that? I looked that way and you looked that way.
Like a cockroach or something. This horrid. Let me finish the
borrowers are here.
What I realised is that the film does things well that we now associate that Marvel does badly. So, for example, there's loads of pop culture references in it, right? As you imagine, Star-Lord making all those things, but it makes sense within the film because it is grounded in his character. So it reminds you, it reinforces the fact that he's from Earth.
He's like an 80s time capsule.
Yeah, exactly. Every time he says a pop culture reference, it reminds me that he was taken from Earth and he's not of this. He has been stranded. He's no longer with his home planet, so he's been kind of ripped away from that. But also he is our surrogate to this world around him. And it's really effective. And the moments of humor like that, it just works very well. Whereas now, when you think of pop culture and Marvel and the quips and everything, it's so like tiresome. And
did that just happen comedy style?
Yeah, I just thought that was an interesting thing that 8 years ago when that film came out, it still works very well. But now that it's like that style has been dragged to the mud.
How does Lee Pace as a villain hold up in that?
I like me. I like Lee Pace.
Yeah,
and
same,
I think Ronan's an effective villain, generic and like he only lasts one film, but he really commits. That's what I like. Lee Pace,
I never found him that good. I thought this is just a bit of a boring. They just went, oh, we need a villain, by the way.
Yeah,
he's blue and he's Ronan and he's got a hammer.
But he
needed to be a comedic foil for the dance-off to save the universe. He needed to be like the very proper. I'm the villain.
Exactly. Yeah, you need to have a serious villain. You can't have a jokey villain.
No. Yeah.
So it works. It all works, that film. So hats off to it. Anyway, it was fun.
The We Are Groot.
Yeah, it gets you.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh,
sneaks up on you that line, doesn't it?
I remember when I went to see it, at the end when the credits were rolling, there was this couple next to me, and the girl was like, sniffling when I wiped her eyes. She was like, I can't believe I'm crying over a raccoon crying over a twig. There's the bit, after the crash where Rocket's crying over the twig. He's like, I was mean to him. I called him.
I shouldn't have done it.
Yeah, and anyway, so
you forget that that's Bradley Cooper as well.
Yeah.
You forget that like a number of times Bradley Cooper has gone, yeah, I guess I'll spend a week in an ADR booth
Easiest
doing...
money he'll ever make.
Oh, God, yeah. What do you reckon he gets? Million?
I don't know.
Less?
I don't know.
$500,000? Who knows what his paycheck is like? But he just has to go in and be like, Peter Quill. That doesn't sound like him at all.
No, it doesn't. So it must be harder than that. 'Cause not anyone could do it.
No one can do it.
Rabbit. All right, Quill, you're gonna do this. It's slightly like this.
Yeah.
What do you still have the orb for?
Yeah, that's it.
Anyway, moving on. It was nice, and I'm really glad we watched it again. And Secret Cinema was fun.
So, George, unbeknownst to our listeners and viewers, you and I weren't recording last week. We actually did 2 episodes last week, and we had a week out. And there was a film that came out, and it was the #1 film on Netflix for that week until I think Dharma has since replaced it on the homepage. And we had previewed this film, Blonde. Starring Ana de Armas, that you and I think a couple of months ago when the trailer came out, were kind of interested in seeing.
Yes. And I think we talked about it when we did the Oscars like run-up, or like the things that are in contention maybe.
Yes, things that are in contention. It's directed by Andrew Dominic, and it's based on the novel by Joyce Carol Oates of the same name, which is apparently a huge, close to 1,800 pager, which I've not read. And I think stylistically it kind of stood out to us as being this like very larger than life, this trailer. I think it was a really cool trailer for a shot, which I can't remember if it made it into the movie, which was Ana de Armas staring into her own reflection as Marilyn, and then like the Marilyn in the mirror like screaming, and then like her version not. And we were both really intrigued by it. We saw sort of, echoes of Spencer, which came out this year. And I think it's safe to say that this film has come out to very mixed reviews. And I think, I remember you also telling me, oh, by the way, it's sort of almost a 3-hour film, to which I was like, okay, that changes my, I've talked a lot about length on this podcast. That kind of changes my impression of how I'm going to go into this, but I'm going to try not to think too much about what other people think. But we've both since we've both since sat down and watched it. George, what did you think of Blonde?
I think Blonde is spectacularly bad. And I use those words because spectacle is really the only thing that has going for it. I think Ana de Armas does a very, very committed performance.
Definitely.
That really puts her through the full range of emotions. They really make her work in this and toil. I think it's got a fantastic score by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, like really sensational, that makes you just want to listen to it on its own. It looks great.
One of the best looking films I've seen.
Absolutely.
Easily.
It's immaculate. But, you and I don't like to be negative about films. We really don't enjoy like picking over and taking films down. But I think it's misjudged, mishandled, and really, ultimately, quite crass.
I was surprised by like that was what it chose to use as its representation of Marilyn Monroe. I started questioning, like, what do I know about Marilyn Monroe?
Right. So
it felt like an unfair story, but I'll let you finish.
Okay. So just taking back, so Andrew Dominic, who's this director who has made some interesting work before, he kind of stood out with this film he made called The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford, which came out in 2007 with Brad Pitt and Casey Affleck, and that was quite well regarded. He then made Killing Them Softly with Brad Pitt. But he's been trying to make Blonde for about 10 years. Since 2010. They first announced it in 2010, and it was going to be Naomi Watts playing Marilyn Monroe.
Yes, I remember that.
And then in 2014, it was going to be Jessica Chastain playing Marilyn Monroe. And it was clearly, he said for a long time, I want to do it my way. I want to do it with my vision, and I can't get the financing without compromising that vision.
Yeah.
As we say, it's based on this novel, so it's a fictionalized version of Marilyn Monroe's life. And he said, I wanted to tell this sort of... He's fascinated with the icon of Marilyn Monroe and wanted to weave this sort of dark fairy tale that sees her in a different light. And, we do see her in a different light in this film. Through Ana de Armas' performance, like I said, which is very committed, but I'll probably say ultimately wasted in this film, sadly. And this is not your conventional biopic at all.
No.
The thing is, if you're going down the dark fairy tale route, and when we just mentioned Spencer there, but when the obvious comparison with taking a famous true life figure and making sort of like a fairy tale sort of mythical take on it is you are putting yourself next to Spencer and Jackie, the two Pablo Larraín films which have done that, right? Mm-hmm. But what is different with Blonde rather, and Spencer and Jackie is that Spencer and Jackie very, very successfully achieves that fairy tale take. It makes sense within the world of those films, particularly with Spencer, because you are dealing with royalty and a princess being stuck in a castle. But with Jackie and Spencer as well, you have films that ultimately do examine, deconstruct, also, and kind of celebrate their central people. So although, Diana in Spencer is frustrating as well as frustrated, she is also, there is a sense that she has her own agency, and there is something quite empowering about it, particularly like the end of Spencer. And the same with Jackie. Like, the whole point of Jackie is that Jackie Kennedy, played by Natalie Portman, is getting squeezed out, but she's fighting for her role. And there is something kind of like, I get why we're doing this. Blonde, on the other hand, is just, frankly, quite exploitative. I think it really mishandles the traumas that happen in Marilyn Monroe's life. It begins incredibly darkly.
It's really dark. It's
Really-
all the way through.
It
doesn't really relent,
you're
to be
absolutely
fair.
very good point. It's incredibly
What
dark.
part of it
dark
is not?
film. But it begins with Marilyn as a child, with her mother, who is abusive and horrible, and
sort of mentally unhinged. as well.
mentally unhinged. And you have this thing. I think it's really mishandled. You can tell these traumas, but like, there's a bit where Marilyn's mother puts her in a hot bath and tries to drown her. Right, this happens 10 minutes in, so it's not too much of a spoiler. And which is a horrible thing to feature, but the way it's filmed is in like slow motion of Marilyn being dunked underneath, and then the music comes in, and then the narration comes, and it's almost weirdly aestheticized and like commodified, this really horrible thing. And that happens a few times. There are some really horrific things that happen to Marilyn throughout her life that is presented by Dominic in a really, really strange,
And they're both naked in
aestheticized-
that scene, which I feel like you're trying to add an extra element of spectacle and not gruesomeness, but you're trying to almost create this. You're using nudity to have this extra shocking factor for something unrelated to it.
Yes,
right?
and also for a film that wants to spend 3 hours on its subject, it's using all these devices that really hold you at a distance. So the music, like I said, by Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, absolutely fantastic.
Enough to keep you going for the whole 3 hours.
Incredibly strange and distancing. It's almost science fiction-esque, isn't it? There's the scene at the beginning after that scene happens, or just before, I think, with the drowning, where her mother drives them up into a wildfire that's happening in the Hollywood Hills, right? And the way it's shot is like an alien spacecraft going into foreign lands, which I guess is intentional, but it's completely at odds with making you really engage and relate. I mean, and this happens again and again, which is for an unforgiving 3 hours. I think it's unforgivable, that runtime. If it was 90 minutes, it would be tedious, but at 3 hours, it is just torturous. And you have moments, for example, where I think I can say this again. I don't think it's too much of a spoiler because this happens about 25 minutes in. It suddenly cuts to Marilyn's experience in Hollywood, and she has this experience where she goes to see an agent and she's raped. Yeah. And it's the way it's cut and edited. I remember feeling that's not handled right. I don't feel comfortable about the way that trauma.
There's another one that comes almost. It's gone as soon as it happens with someone who's not obviously JFK, but he's heavily,
inferred
suggested
to be
that's
JFK.
That's JFK.
He's not named as JFK.
But like anyone who's been
brain.
alive, who's anyone older than 10 could go. That not anyone 10 should be watching this, but you get the sense. It's like you're talking about the length, which I don't want to beat a dead horse. I was talking about length really needing to justify itself. But as dark as that opening was, I still couldn't see the forest for the trees for what this film was yet. Yeah. It was definitely as the film went on that I think I started to lose my patience with it.
Totally.
The way which scenes came and went, and I couldn't necessarily see what they were contributing towards, and that becomes more evident that it's not contributing towards that much towards the end. But I actually think that length forced me to become quite tired with the film, and it actually started to have me lose empathy for this character when you want me to feel really empathetic for her, and in this really sad, dark film, you've actually got me rolling my eyes for a figure I'm meant to be like absolutely distraught over. And I just think it's so ironic for this film to be all about the image and the silhouette and the icon of Marilyn Monroe and the use of her body. Like the whole film, she never has control over her body, whether it's like being abused in the beginning by her mother, whether it's like being sexually assaulted by someone else. The image rights of what she does, her husband's control, like the whole thing is about control of her body. But then and the thing about how she's reduced to this like physicality. But the film,
is
ironically,
itself doing that,
is in itself doing that. And I don't think in a way that is like purposeful.
Yeah.
And I think that the way in which it's shot, and, you know, time passes through this film, but also seemingly not at all, because scenes don't ever really definitively end that much. Sometimes they just bleed into the next.
Yeah.
So it's not like you see 1956, like, welcome to, also not, that'll be too late, but like, it's not like it goes through the years and you can almost like, almost chapter up this film and sort of get a sense of where you are. It's very much like, no, I'm going to take you through my own beautifully woven story. It just meant that I never really got a sense of why it was doing that and what I was meant to be doing with it. Beautiful sequences. Like there was a scene, even an incredibly sex scene, which was like cut across with a waterfall. I was like, I've not seen anything like it.
That's it. So I was going to bring that bit up. There's a point. So this is at the end of the first hour. The first hour, I was really trying to get with it.
Yeah, same.
Second hour was patience testing. And by the third hour, I was like, this film is over for me. This film it's completely lost me. So at the end of the first hour, she has this extended scene with Charlie Chaplin Jr. and Edward G. Robertson Jr., where they have a threesome, and it's, you know, full nudity, and there's a bit where Marilyn like gazes at herself completely naked in the mirror, and it's all about like reclaiming your own sexual identity, I guess. And she's got this. Again, it's just uncomfortable. She's having sex on this bed, and the edge of the bed then becomes Niagara Falls, and then they fade out. And
technically, I mean, looks beautiful.
But I was like, I remember thinking, what is that shot doing in this scene? Because in a way, uncomfortably, it's like you've got something that's an incredibly important event in her life, and I feel like it almost comes across as slightly egotistical on the director's part. Dare I say, male egotistical, to be like, I'm going to put in this great image. Yeah, whatever, I don't care what's happening in the scene. Let's just put in this great transition. And the thing is, I don't know whether this is a relevant point of argument, but I think it's worth discussing, is that as the film dragged on, I thought, why is this made by a man and why is this not written by a man, right? And I know that's a very binary look at things, but what I say that because there are experiences that Marilyn, the character, goes through in this film that are traumatic, specific to the female experience, right? Abortion, sexual assault, domestic violence, sexism in the industry. And I wouldn't normally level that at a film, but when I was watching it, I was just like, this is clearly made by someone who is not connecting with those issues, which clearly affected Marilyn. They're presenting the issues, but like they're not actually understanding the importance of that, because as you said, ironically, it slips into doing the very almost victimizing and controlling Marilyn in the way that the characters are in the film.
It felt weirdly ill-disciplined from a filmmaker who I don't think would be like. It felt like almost like studenty level of depth in a concept.
There is now. I didn't realize when I was watching it, but now the most talked about scene, which is the most, I think, rubbish student-esque scene, which is the talking fetus scene. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
So there's this, I mean, again, I'm sorry, we are straying into slight spoiler territory, but you can't really spoil it because obviously we know what happens to Marilyn Monroe, and like you say, scenes just sort of begin and end. You can't say, in the third act.
It's like all of a sudden you're looking at a picture of her face, and her face morphs into like the venal vein structure of her own uterus, which a baby is then there, which then warps. Like the whole film kind of. I know scenes obviously do end, but it just goes and goes.
So she's had an abortion earlier in the film, and she's now pregnant with her second child, and she's in the garden, like again beautifully shot, trimming like the rose bushes. And she sort of puts her hand to her stomach, and the fetus talks to her with this voiceover that goes like, "You're not going to kill me again, are you?"
Yeah.
She's like, "No, I didn't do that before. You know, that was the other."
This is student is insulting. I'd say this is GCSE level drama.
It did. It felt like freeze.
Yeah.
How do we feel
about abortion? Yeah.
Children in the womb.
Yeah.
It was.
I was just like, is this a pro-life stance we're taking in this film? I couldn't tell.
It was just so out of place, and
I almost feel bad because this was a 3-hour film and we could tear apart a lot of scenes, you know, and we could sit here and go, think about that moment and how bad it was. But you know what I thought coming out of this after I'd sat through 3 hours is that there's probably loads that we haven't seen, and I bet somewhere there is an amazing, completely different cut of this film that you could make because there's so many great elements to it. You could easily go for a completely different look feel.
It looked like a film. I said that Andrew Dominik had been trying to make it for 12 years.
Yeah.
It looked like the film of someone.
Sorry, Sirens on Aaron.
It looked like a film that had been kept in someone's head for 12 years. He's had that film too long in his own mind and has been allowed to have too much control over it. And you kind of get to the end and think, I either A, want a better version of that, or B, just leave her alone. It's a sad story. It's really tragic. And I've seen Instagram posts that point out much more positive elements of Marilyn's life that this film fails to mention. I will say that Adrian Brody has a very brief but quite good turn as Arthur Miller, or not named as Arthur Miller, but definitely meant to be Arthur Miller.
That's another thing that's kind of irritating. It's like no one's ever named to be the person they are.
But
we're all here talking about who that is. So why not just have the courage to be like, this is Arthur Miller.
Yeah, we all know it's Arthur
Marilyn
Miller.
Monroe.
He's brilliant in it. He comes way too late in the film for it to be saved.
Yeah.
Like I was like, I'm completely out of this film already, but. Also, I made the comparison to Jackie earlier. The actor they get to play JFK, who's not JFK but is JFK, is the same actor they got to play JFK in Jackie.
How interesting.
And I was like, you cheapskate, Andrew Dominik. You
just get the guy who does JFK, yeah.
I'm trying to think of if there's any more extractable positives we could say. I actually feel sad for Ana de Armas because her performance is so good.
Yeah.
And like I said, so committed. There's not a flicker of doubt in her mind. She really is committed to this. But it's wasted. It's wasted in a film that I would be surprised if she even gets nominated because, like, what Academy member is going to sit through that for 3 hours? And it's not just that it's long. It's messy and it's strange and it's ill-conceived.
Yeah, I think Ana de Armas is fantastic in it, and I think, as I said, there is surely a cut of that film where I think, we're filled with great stuff where I'm not as irritated. Again, like I felt unempathetic towards her at the end, and Ana de Armas is an actor who I'm like always looking forward to seeing in things now. Like she stole the show in No Time to Die and has charm and is talented and is versatile, but I feel actually a bit. Almost like I've seen far too much of Ana de Armas after having seen that. I feel almost like I'm a bit done with seeing Ana de Armas, which is a shame because I don't think it's her fault.
There are some very, very vivid and striking imagery. Like, you know, when you say you've seen...
Yeah.
I just think also that's come to my mind is that Mark Kermode once told this story. I think it was about Bill Forsyth, right, who's the director. And that he had made this film. I'm sorry if I'm like... the point is valid for this anecdote, whether or not it's true or not. Is that he had been trying to make this film, I think with Jack Nicholson in the 80s, and it was like an epic, and it kind of went through different time periods, a little bit of a period piece, and it became increasingly bloated, increasingly long, and it was ultimately a disaster, completely bombed, and then he went away and didn't make a film for a while. I think years later, Mark Kermode was interviewing him, and he said, you know, what happened with that? What happened with that film? What was going on there? I think Bill Forsyth went, you know, maybe I should have just written a poem. And I kind of feel about that with Blonde. I'm watching...
Get the creative juices out.
I was like, maybe the longer you write this and the longer you make this film, the longer you've worked on this, the worse it gets. Maybe if you made a 3-minute video, even a music video or so, or written a poem, it would have been more interesting. Because you know why? Because I was watching it and I just thought, I'm just going to go listen to Candle in the Wind. That does this much better.
You know when you were at school and you would have a piece of blue tack in your pocket at the beginning of the day and you would be fiddling with it all day.
Yeah.
You're constantly playing, making different things, different shapes, rolling it out, doing this. And at the end of the day, you look at that piece of blue tack and it's got lint from your pocket, gross pencil sharpenings in it, like lead things. You're like, I've just been moving and morphing this thing around to the point where it's just absolutely ruined with my fingerprints. I need to just throw it away. That's my metaphor.
There you go.
For this film.
If you've seen Blonde and you completely disagree with us, let us know. Or if you agree with us, we'd love to hear other people's takes because even though it was #1 on Netflix, I'm like, I really want to know who, like us, has taken the challenge and tried to watch all 3 hours.
I take the #1 on Netflix statement with a huge pinch of salt because there is a phenomenon which is it was on the Netflix homepage. And therefore, it is #1.
Got it.
I don't get me wrong. I think a lot of people were very interested in this film. Big director, big actor. But I don't hear anecdotally that many people have seen it. I can't imagine a lot of people would have started it and stuck with it all the way through after they sort of get a sense of the tone, and it's very dark. I saw tweets that saying, did watch the first 15 minutes and had to switch off.
Yeah.
Like, I think that will just happen. A lot of people won't watch it. Because I think there is this thing right now where whatever is on the homepage, everyone is talking about it, regardless of if or not it's good. Everyone is talking about the Dharma show right now. Yeah. And every time I ask someone, is it good? Because I want to know, like, is it worth my time? Should I talk about it in this podcast? And every single person that has seen it has gone, it's not really, but I've watched it all the way through. And it just has that sense where, like, it's the Netflix brand of, like, serial killer, murder, tease out the info based on a true story. Yeah. And it's just, like, presented to you there, big blue, your eyes, go for it.
I have no inclination to watch Dharma.
No.
Because
no one sold me on it, but everyone seems
I know
to have
about Jeffrey
it.
Dahmer. I've read up on it. Horrific.
Yeah.
Absolutely horrible.
I believe it.
I believe it happened. I know it happened. I know the story. I don't need to watch. I need to spend 8 hours of my week watching that.
If no one's telling me, oh no, this is like told in a really compelling, new, exciting, innovative way, I'd be like, okay. But the fact that I don't think it is, based on what everyone's told me, I'm not going to sink hours into it.
Yeah. Anyway, there we are. That's Blonde. Slightly downbeat, but
you can write in your opinions to hello at you can write in your thoughts, questions. I just fall all over the place.
Let me try. You can write into hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com.
Thank you.
So, James, you sat down and watched This England, didn't you?
Yeah, I'll do this quickly. I've said a few times on this show that I think even if the subject matter of a piece of art is not necessarily enjoyable to consume, or if it's quite a challenging subject matter, you shouldn't shy away from it, because sometimes, like, that's the point, and you should sometimes engage with something that makes you a bit uncomfortable, or sometimes not something you really want to engage with. This is the exception. This England is starring Kenneth Branagh, and it's Michael Winterbottom's produced and written series, all about the events specifically in the UK, going from December 2019 through to April, May of 2020. So it basically covers the outbreak of COVID and the government's response, and, you know, announcing the lockdown of COVID. And I was quite interested in it because Kenneth Branagh stars as an uncanny Boris Johnson. Wow. And one of the best things about it is Kenneth Branagh is completely lost in the best way into Boris Johnson. He's got a sort of fat suit and prosthetic on. The prosthetic works, but it has a little bit of a Michael Myers from Halloween effect. Like, it's a little bit too rubbery. But anyway, he's fantastic in it. And it's this very realistic, grounded, dry, there's very little drama and spectacle added to it. It's almost documentary-like and matter-of-fact of what happened. And I remember my girlfriend caught me watching this, and she was like, oh, this is a bit interesting. She's like, but you look on your face is really, like, you look really affected. And my face was just this mixture of, like, sadness and despair crossed with borderline PTSD, having to relive the era of what we all know was, like, realizing what COVID was in the first lockdown. And I just found it really difficult to go through and re-remind myself of that period for obvious reasons. And, you know, I'm not trying to say that I had the hardest time during lockdown, but just like sort of what we went through as a country. And what this film ultimately, what this series, it's 6 episodes, ultimately fails to do is shed any new info on, or give a new perspective to something I didn't know already. It unfortunately is both too soon and out of date at the same time, because there are events that are covered in this period, which, since this show has been filmed, we now know new information about that. So, like, things relating to Partygate, which was not at all addressed, which I now think
in the series,
not at all addressed. There was a word at the end of the series which they mentioned, which, to be honest, like, for me now, completely reframes the ways in which decisions were made, and it's one of, like, the great hypocrisies that happened in the UK government's handling of the crisis. And then the Dominic Cummings going to Barnard Castle drama. Dominic Cummings is one of my favourite characters in this, because he's just quite, like, cynical and jaded. But, like, that whole saga, which we now know, well, it was a lot of he said, she said, but he eventually came out to say that the reason that he left to go to Barnard Castle was because his wife was receiving death threats and he wanted to get them out. It's all very complicated. And again, like, just you're frowning as you look at me, because you're just remembering, like, this very he said, she said, like, politics. And I just feel like it's completely misplaced. The fact that already in the period since it's come out, I can go, that is now a bad representation of what happened in this show, I just think is a bit of a shame. The dust has not settled on this issue for you to make a definitive impression on what happened. I'm being very negative. As a technically, as a drama, really well acted, really well told. I think there were some good scenes that happened with the like disgraceful handling of care homes, and it showed these real human stories that happened to people and what most likely would have happened to actual people, and why the neglect of giving proper PPE to people on the way in which they didn't test properly. I think it's really sad. But 6 episodes? No.
Yeah.
I didn't need it.
Maybe an hour and a half TV film could have done it.
An hour and a half TV film could have done it. It's as I said, it was out of date and too soon at the same time, which I think is kind of a shame.
I'm gonna continue to not watch it.
I can recommend no one to watch it, despite it being quite a well-made drama.
Being well made is, I hate to say it's not really a gold standard anymore.
I see what you mean.
Something's been like, it's got very high budget talent in it. It's got a high budget. It looks fantastic. Yeah, that's great.
It's almost an irrelevant point. I think you're right.
Yeah, we expect of that of TV now. You need to be doing more. Okay, thanks for that. I don't want to relive 2020. I saw the trailer and I thought, no.
Also,
maybe in 10 years' time. This is why I said The Crown shouldn't go up to present day, because, as you say, there is stuff in that will be too soon and would have dated.
This could be a point that applies to people depending on their, political stance. I'm not going to sort of, make a grand statement about it, but I actually found it oddly sympathetic towards the likes of Matt Hancock and Boris Johnson. And it shows Boris Johnson, in his time in number 10, like off duty, and him struggling with the decisions that he's making. And I'm almost wondering, why show this side of it? Are you trying to infer that like there's actually a human being behind all these decisions, but like so much of the series is all about showing that if they had acted sooner, we would have saved countless lives. Like there's this moment where they're making decisions with Chris Whitty and Patrick Vallance, who are like the chief medical officers, who are saying, if we lock down now, we can maybe only have 10,000 lives dead, versus if we don't, it'll be 100,000 lives dead. But I think we now know that in the UK we've lost 200,000 people to COVID. So I'm almost like, what's the point of this? What are you trying to infer? Are you trying to really ridicule the people who are in charge, or are you trying to show that there are like human beings behind all of these decisions that are struggling to find the answer? I don't know why it was there.
Shame. I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Don't watch it. I'm sorry, don't watch it.
Let's talk about something else.
Let's go through some of the emails that we got this week. As always, we absolutely love hearing your emails, and you can send in your thoughts, your questions, and your concerns to hello@pulpkitchenpodcast.com, just like Mike did. Mike writes in and says, "Hello, gents. Long-time listener, first-time caller," which I know he's talking about a radio reference there. We don't have a live.
What's your question?
It would be cool to do a live thing.
I've always wondered why the movies have the popcorn.
I'd love to do that.
How about those nuts on airplanes? Huh? What's the deal?
like a Frasier kind of radio thing. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, Craig, you're on live. Craig, what's your question?
I just want to say, your last caller had no idea.
Or I think the sad thing is actually that's just more LBC now.
It's the 5 Live. Well, I don't know what Wenger's doing. He's the biggest fool in Manchester.
Put Giggsy in. Yeah.
Why is he not playing Grealish?
Yeah.
Long time listener, first time caller.
Thank you.
I have many questions to ask you guys, but I will lead with this one first. Now that the dust has settled on the Daniel Craig era of Bond, at brackets, an ending I'm still not 100% sold on.
Okay.
What do you feel about the ending of No Time to Die?
I liked it.
With it. That was fine. He had to die.
I like he had time to die.
Yeah, he did.
It was time to die.
It was time. They gave it a good 10 minutes.
Yeah.
The main topic that crops up in my office whenever films are brought up is who will be the next James Bond.
Classic.
This is a classic question that has passed the lips of generations, a cinematic staple for the past 59 years. And now with Barbara Broccoli stating the producers are looking for a 12-year commitment, my question for you guys is, outside the favourites, the Cavills, Hardys, Elbers of Hollywood, is there an actor that you think would be a great choice? Just to put my pick in the ring to battle it out, I feel that Jack O'Connell would make an excellent choice. Right. Love the pod and all the impressions. You guys are smashing it. Big loves, Mike.
Love Jack O'Connell.
George James Bond.
Well, we talked this week because I thought I was getting
I remember you saying.
Smart. It was the 60th anniversary of James Bond or something, and there was this sort of celebration or presentation happening somewhere, and I thought, here we go, they're going to use this to announce the new Bond, and they didn't. But I do know that apparently they've whittled it down to 2 people
Wow.
who are in their 30s, okay?
Okay.
So they're not going to be Gen Z or anything like that or older. I think the Idris Elba's already ruled himself out, so doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Because he's like, he doesn't really need to.
He says he gets asked that question. He says if he goes out, he'll get asked it 5+ times a day. It's like literally the question.
He also, like, Idris Elba, no offense, he's 50.
Yeah.
I love Idris Elba. He's great, but he can do other things.
A lot of the obvious ones I would have loved 10 years ago.
Also,
now I actually feel like they're a bit tired as choices.
Henry Cavill was almost Bond. It was between him and Daniel Craig, and they went with Daniel Craig. Henry Cavill,
He was almost Superman before he was Superman as well.
Really,
in
with the Brandon Routh
yes,
one?
with the Brandon
Oh,
Routh
wow.
one. Yeah.
Okay, so look, I think that's all over. The one that also gets mentioned a lot is James Norton,
Yes.
the actor, but I feel like he's been named so many times as the next one for the past 5 years that even he's now moved
He once
past it.
taught me a drama workshop at school.
Really?
He was my drama teacher's friend from uni.
Wow.
And like he was just before anyone knew who he
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
I was like, oh, he's like an actor, James Norton. I think he'd done like an episode, like he'd been in an episode of Doctor Who before.
Right.
That's the only like thing I think I'd known he was in. And he taught us, like he was a working actor, he came to teach us, like talk to us about drama school. Right. And ever since I've been like, oh my god, that's James Norton, that guy who. what was the show he did where he was a priest or something?
Oh, Grantchester.
That was the thing where he really blew up. And I was
Yeah.
like, oh my god, I know that guy. He like taught me an episode. Of drama. Anyway.
I don't know. Who
This is
Bond.
why go unknown for me. Just please
Really?
find someone I don't know anything about. Like the same way that I know Daniel Craig wasn't unknown, but I had no impression of who Daniel Craig was when he got cast. I mean, I was.
You want someone who can grow into the role.
Yes.
Who doesn't have baggage of associations. with
I
other
think
things.
again those people. I think Henry Cavill, he's Superman. I know he's not doing that much anymore, but I think you shouldn't have more than one of those really big, like
The Witcher as
all-encompassing.
well, isn't it?
Yeah, Tom Hardy. I think again, if you'd asked me in 2010, I'd be like, oh, Tom Hardy would be the best.
But also Tom Hardy's much more interesting and sort of darker than I think Bond.
I don't want to tie him up for 4 films to do James Bond. I'd rather he just kept doing loads of different interesting things. I
Yeah.
agree, Elba's too old. Whenever I see those big listicle articles where like, here are the 20 actors that could be in the running, I'm never excited by any of them.
No.
I don't want like Regé Jean Page.
Right.
I feel like he's not quite right.
Because he brings the Bridgerton.
Yeah, and I'm not saying he's just that role, but there's just everyone's like, oh, it could be him, and I'm like, give me someone I don't know.
Or like Henry Golding, and I'm like. So really, all bets are off.
No idea.
I would love to be delightfully surprised.
What am I going to do? Like root for someone, have my pick, and then like if it doesn't get picked, which is something completely out of my control, I'm like, oh, they didn't pick my guy. Like,
Yeah,
no,
you
I'm
want
just gonna-
want to be surprised because then they give you something you're not. Yeah,
And I hope, they said 12-year commitment. I assume that's at least 3 films.
probably 3, 4. Yeah,
Do reinvent the wheel again.
Yeah.
Because I think in Daniel Craig revolutionized.
just reinvent the wheel again. Easy.
Well, they did. I did. All fair
it's
to them.
true.
Casino Royale, they did. And then I think towards the end that wasn't refreshing necessarily anymore. And it sort of did and didn't work. Give me a completely new way to tell that story again. It's an amazing opportunity to do that. James writes into the show and says, hi chaps, hope all is well. I'll start with my question. What is your opinion on the rise of YouTube film bros who heavily critique modern Hollywood and the Netflixification of old IPs, the embracing of diversity, inclusion, and modern messages? You both seem far more measured in your reception of modern film/TV shows. Do you think their criticism is valid at all, e.g. Tolkien fanatics disliking Rings of Power? And then he says, apologies for a bit of a long one. I wanted to write in to say how much I love your podcast. I find you both super engaging, funny and thoughtful. In the era of film bros generating millions of views for borderline chauvinistic, racist critiques of modern films with no actual analysis or film craft or cinema, it is refreshing for you to see your more open and appreciative approach to film. All the best, James. James, that's really kind.
That's
I'll
very
say
lovely,
from the
but thank
get-go, we can't comment on any individual opinion because you've mentioned, being like minimizing about diversity, inclusion, and being racist and misogynistic. That's covering what could be hundreds of opinions. So I couldn't comment on any specific one.
What do you mean, like, no, but I think it's more that how do we feel about. So it's kind that James in this email doesn't see us as YouTube bros,
Which I think is a
I'm
good
glad, 'cause
thing.
I don't think we think of ourselves as that.
Yes.
But in distinguishing us from them, how do we view YouTube film bros?
I would say that there are many times you and I stop ourselves from giving an opinion that we think, if we can't see where it's going, it might be a little bit reductive.
Yeah.
And I think it's very easy for us to sit here completely untalented and unofficial in the way of being like we're not critics.
Yeah,
So I feel like for us to give an opinion, it shouldn't just be negative for the sake of being negative or comment on something that I don't think we're
I
really
agree.
in a place to make a good comment on it.
We just did a spoiler discussion of Don't Worry Darling, for
Yeah.
example, when I gave my I was a little bit frustrated about the film, but all my frustrations, I hope, were presented to be grounded in the way the film doesn't work.
Yes.
It's got nothing to do with sort of wider exacerbations or like film bro stuff. And also, I think you and I are aware of like the film bro traits of like, I mean, I know our podcast is called PULP KITCHEN, which is like Vogue's Pulp Fiction, which is a very film bro thing, but this like culture of Fight Club and what are the other ones? Scarface and the kind of Wolf of Wall Street, like university dorm stuff. But in a way, I don't know.
I think there's also a thing where discourse on the internet has become incredibly like you're either on this side or you're on this side, and I think we're not
interested in that.
We need to be like I like the idea that like people can disagree and hold different opinions, but as long as you're like articulate in how you express it and you're justified, or you give reasons for why you think that way, you shouldn't necessarily have to challenge someone else for thinking something that you didn't, liking something that you didn't, and that's okay.
I know this sounds strange because we might have done this, but I am always very, very suspicious of these film channels that are either absolutely scathing about a film or ecstatic about a film.
Yeah.
Which I know is weird because we've just done a review of Blonde and I just gave my views on Don't Worry Darling, which is typically, but whenever I see that, I'm like, nothing is as crystally brilliant as that. Like I really want to know how you've engaged it because some people just gush.
Yeah.
We try and not do that. Anyway, this has become quite self-reflective.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We don't really have an answer, but I guess we're just trying not to reduce ourselves to a very
We're trying to make sure
binary
that
system of thought.
well, the way I look at it is that whenever we talk about a film, that is, whether we don't like it or if we disagree with it, that film has fundamentally been the product of a lot of hard work, a lot of people that has been made. And also, when you are making a film, when you are a filmmaker, you are just trying to control so many factors that are beyond your control to steer a ship that really, when you're making a film, even with the script and with all the talent involved, you don't know really how it's going to come out the other end. You don't know what you're going to be presenting an audience with at the end. You don't know whether it's going to be good or bad. And we respect that. So whenever we talk about film, we really we don't enjoy taking it down peg by peg. So if you listen to our Blonde review, we try and really
try to stop ourselves from going in,
not just like tearing it to shreds, but really justifying why it didn't work.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Catherine writes into the show and says, "Hi again. I just listened to your own review of See How They Run and had some thoughts. To quote a woman leaving the same cinema screen as me, quote, well, that was a whole load of rubbish.
Whoa.
So I enjoyed it. I loved the 50s aesthetic, loved the cinematography, loved the main two characters. I did feel like almost the gags that were there we'd seen in the trailer already." Gags were there.
Yeah, the gags that were in the film, yeah.
I did feel like most of the gags that were there we'd seen in the trailer already. In my professional capacity, I work with books, and one of the most infuriating things for me in a book synopsis is a fine and dandy sounding drama, and then it hits you with but she's the long lost descendant of Jane Austen, which I kind of feel was the vibe in this film. The vibe this film gave. For me, it cheapens the story almost, and I think with See How They Run, it had so much potential and was really stylish as to attract an audience, but suffered from the Agatha Christie angle. I found the portrayal to be quite cringeworthy, and if they'd done a story without the name dropping and had much the same characters but fictional, i.e. no Agatha Christie or Mousetrap, I think it would have been much better and could have had a potential sequel. Solid 6 out of 10, would probably not recommend. All the best, Catherine.
Very thorough and frank review from you there. I appreciate that.
Catherine, I think that's...
for a film that I haven't seen yet.
I think that's totally fair. I think it is a case where, like, I did, for a film that's so sharp and self-aware of the fact that it's of whodunits, and it seeks to like dissect and satirize them in as well as being a commentary on a whodunit and being a whodunit. I hoped that at the end I would have a little bit more to talk to you about, but the ending I was just a little bit of like whatever too. But I still kind of enjoyed it. This next one,
I'll be watching that film at Christmas, I think.
Yeah, great shout for it. This next one's from Molly. Hi, I'm really loving the podcast.
Oh, thanks,
it is
Molly.
essential listening on the way to college.
Hey.
I didn't discover you on TikTok, shock face.
Whoa.
But my friend who recommended you to me did.
Oh,
Thank you for all those friends out there recommending you doing
keep
God's work.
recommending to people. Thank you.
I was wondering what films released in this century do you think will stand the test of time? For
Whoa,
example, I
blimey.
believe Get Out will be a classic for many years to come. Or maybe what films that are popular that maybe won't. For example, I love Bodies, 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 but don't see that connecting with future generations. Thanks, Molly. I think that's a good point about Bodies, Bodies, Bodies. It might age quite quickly.
Yeah.
But George, what films from this century, so from 2000 onwards, do you think will stand the test of time? Big question.
Well, that's interesting because like there have been a couple of polls. I think around about 2019, when we're getting the end of the decade, there were a couple of polls that said best films so far
of the 2010s.
Of the 20th century.
Oh, sure, yeah.
The Guardian voted There Will Be Blood is one of their best films.
I was going to say that could be
I
one.
think you're starting to see the tentpoles come through. Like we always talk about The Social Network.
Yes.
There Will Be Blood. No Country for Old Men.
I think a film that really captured everyone's imagination at the time was Inception. I feel
Yes,
like that
Inception.
just swept through everyone's
Yeah.
sort of. I got people really excited about a film which I'd never seen before.
I always like to think that separate from Marvel, but like Guardians of the Galaxy will survive as like a perennial favorite amongst like families.
That whole
family favorite.
I think you could count the build up to the Infinity War as being special and like
in its own way.
In its own way.
That, like,
We'd never
children
seen
in the
anything
future
like
will grow
it.
up and like work their way through it.
And I think granddads will go, oh, I remember like, and they all came together.
When the thing came from the sky.
Yeah, and that like the idea of all them all teaming up would have been the most amazing thing.
Oh, I would like to say Parasite. I
Yeah.
would like to think that what we've watched there is something that you look back and go, "Whoa, that's one for the ages."
Yeah, there are. I mean, that's like it's 20 years of film. There's so many great. Like Lost in Translation would be a film that I think is timeless and amazing.
Is it though?
Do you
I don't know if
think?
that. I don't know if that. I think that might have dated badly. I haven't seen that in a
'cause
while.
of
The
the
whole
age
handling
thing.
of
True.
no, but it's the whole handling because it's there's no. They don't have a sexual relationship.
No,
in the
but
film. it's about the Western perception of Japan.
Yes,
And,
true.
And you know the Western's outsider's view. But that debate's been happening since the film came out. I mean,
That's true.
What else has happened?
There Will Be Blood is pretty timeless.
I think that's pretty good. It's a very hard question. What we've just basically mentioned is films we always talk about as films we like.
Social Network is good because it's right on the precipice of like this current landscape of social media. So it's always going to be this interesting case study of like on the verge of something bigger than anyone could control.
I do
That's why
see
they should do a sequel to
a
it.
film. I mean, whether or not I do see a film like The Wolf of Wall Street just surviving and being in circulation for just a
Yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
It's just a film like Pulp Fiction that just goes around and people say, "Oh, you haven't seen Wolf." It's always around.
Yes,
Under the skin of people.
for right or wrong. Wolf of Wall
Well, that's
Street.
it. That's it.
Yeah,
Whatever
for
you think
better or
about
worse.
it will always just But
Huge question.
a huge question that we've basically
trying to think from, like,
we've basically
early-
just said the same films we normally say. They're
Yeah.
just films that we like. But
Spider-Man 1, 2002.
yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna say Parasite, the most recent one. As an example.
Yeah, love that. This one's from Dan Z, who writes into hello@popkitchenpodcast.com. He says, hey guys, me again. I was listening to the latest
Dan.
pod, number 43, and I agreed with one of the prior emails saying he agrees with a lot of your opinions. This got me thinking, would you guys ever consider doing a form of watch-along/commentary where you two would watch a movie together and do a live commentary of it? I understand you two are full-time jobs, thank you.
you.
Finding the time to do so would
It's
be
nice
quite
that you
tedious.
say that,
I
yeah.
like that it's acknowledged. But if it was possible, I would imagine a lot of the audience would be on board. Keep smashing it, gents, from Dan Z.
Good one, Dan. I mean, we would like to do that, and we
Yeah.
have talked about it. It's just that, as you say, with the time constraints that we have just to put this show together, it's like creating a whole other show, isn't it?
I would say that the idea of a watch-along commentary, I've never sat and listened to two people watch another film because we can't put the film up because for copyright reasons, so you'd have to sort of sync up and press play. I almost wonder, like, if we did have time to do that, I think there are other things I would rather do first with that time than do that. If you and I did a 9 to 5 where all we did was this stuff, I would be like 100%.
Yeah.
Let's throw that in.
One day.
But yeah, if you didn't know, we are completely self-produced and there's no
Yes.
like person behind the scenes. We're completely independent. There's no like podcast house that manages this for us or
No,
edits
there's
it.
no
So, like,
producer. It's us. It's you and me.
it's just as much time as we want to put in / can put into
Two-man
this
band.
whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love the idea of doing so many more different fun film bits of content
If
with you.
someone said to me, like, can I speak to your producer? I'd be like, yes, sure. And I'd just put a moustache on, glue on moustache, fake glasses. It's like, hello, I'm the manager.
I love the idea of us going into a meeting one day and be like, the team at the office are just working through the night, taking fake calls. No, push back. No, tell him 2 million or we're not turning up.
Hello, is that Mr. Schneedley?
Yeah. Sorry, Mr. Scorsese. We can, I beg your pardon. This new chief of operations.
Sorry, you were
has
telling me
got a
about
lip.
Taxi Driver 2.
Yeah.
Can't get a cab.
It's funny. I spoke to James Cameron last night,
Yeah.
and he just Avatar,
Have
sequel.
a break.
Yeah.
My God, am I right?
So this is an email about Don't Worry, Darling. You and I did a spoiler discussion very recently about Don't Worry, Darling, which you can see on the channel. If you have seen Don't Worry, Darling, and you wanted to hear about George's thoughts after I had seen it, please go and check that out. Kyle has written in to give some impressions of, I think, my opinion, where he said, "Hey guys, dedicated listener, second time writing in. Thank you very much. Wanted to say thank you guys again for another great week of content, and I'm excited for what's to come. Thank you so much. I did want to respond to James's take on Don't Worry Darling because I had almost a purely opposite opinion. I loved the movie.
Well,
I know what he was saying when he saw where it was going, but I was curious exactly what he meant by saw the twist coming. I'll read it out and then I'll respond. I thought the world was fake, but I love the idea.
I think there's some spoilers in this email.
Yes. Spoilers for Don't Worry Darling. Thank you for writing us.
Maybe
If you haven't seen Don't Worry Darling yet, please just skip forward ahead. So he says, I did want to respond. No, okay. He goes on to say, I thought the world was fake, but I love the idea of it being incel men who are hyper-obsessed with masculinity and they submit to a podcast leader with the likes of a Jordan Peterson character or even most recently Andrew Tate.
Yes.
I've seen the same where I saw where it was going and it was boring criticism from other critics online, but I think it's just a different take on an established storyline. I was curious if you guys agree. Also, for what it's worth, I think James's take is still valid and I get him wanting something different outside that story arc, but I wanted to ask if you meant that he saw that only the world was fake idea coming, or if he did actually go as far as to catch that it was in a simulated world with incels tying their wives up and submitting to an Alpha Bro podcast host. Because if that's the latter, hats off to James. By the way, guys, you can sign up to our program where we're going to... No, I'm kidding. All in all, I love the pod and I thought James brought up some great points, but was conflicted when I watched it and I loved it and I loved it and just wanted to say my part. Thank you guys again for great content each week. Peace and love, Kyle.
I'm really glad that you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
It is good because go and watch my thoughts. I in our spoiler discussion, I was less favourable on it than James was.
And you should listen to George's points because I think a lot of them are valid because you were a lot less sympathetic to it. I will say, if you asked me why I saw the twist coming, spoilers, I did tell that it was going to be a village-esque, it's actually all in the modern day. Right. This 1950s Americana setting well, I didn't guess that they were in a computerized simulation, but I was like, this is not real. Yeah. This is clearly modern.
I rewatched the Village the other week.
Oh, no, you didn't.
No, because I know we've been talking about it for a while. But
we have.
But I was just like, I'm just going to do it.
Yeah.
And I did like it. It was not amazing, but...
There's parts of it that are kind of good,
It's great for autumn because it's such a vibe.
Yeah. Great James Newton Howard score.
Bryce Dallas Howard, not very convincing as a blind person, but it's got
Phoenix.
Joaquin Phoenix. It's got a very, very good performance by William Hurt in it. And there's a bit where he gathers the elders and basically says like, hey, she needs to go. Why are we doing this? And
I really like the sequence when she's holding out her hand, waiting for Joaquin Phoenix to take it. And at the time, you think the monsters are coming, and the swell of the music. I just remember that being brilliant.
What's very clever is when William Hurt said, like the first twist, if you like, William Hurt said, spoilers for The Village, but James has already given away, but 20 years ago, where William Hurt said, the monsters aren't real. It's all dress up. But then she's in the woods, but then there's a monster in the woods. And then you're like, I like that. And then you still get scared of it chasing her because it's making all the noise, but it's just Adrian Brody.
Yes. So thank you very much for your opinion. I have a feeling, just back to Don't Worry Darling, that the longer that this film is out and the more people sort of get the sense that this has a very surface level depth and that the payoff is very thin, I think the responses to it will become less and less sympathetic.
Yes, yeah.
Whereas I feel like from the get-go there's excitement and people being like, oh, I wonder, and now that veil of mystery is being just removed, I think people will be more jaded with it. But glad to hear that you had a good time with it. This one is from Puck. Hello, guys. Puck here from The Hague, the Netherlands.
Oh,
thank you.
Hey.
I found your podcast by myself on Spotify. Actually, who am I kidding? Of course, it was TikTok. I can really relate to the passion you guys have for cinema because I really love cinema myself and I love to talk to people about it, yet sometimes feel like we are not the same level of passion. Well, Puck, we're here for you. Welcome. Yeah. In your opinion, what would be a movie that will almost guarantee at least a bit of enthusiasm about cinema after watching it? One that will reveal someone as either clearly not interested in talking about cinema or as somewhat savable. Keep up the good work. Cheers, Puck.
Yeah, great question. What you're basically talking about there is like deal breaker films, almost like films that if you... that you almost like objectively uncontestable. The one that came to mind was The Shawshank Redemption, right?
Okay, yeah.
Because that's not a question of quality. I'm not saying you need to watch that and go, that's an amazing film. I'm not trying to say it's like, I mean, Shawshank is pretty great, but like if you showed Shawshank to someone and they went, don't think much of that. Yeah. I was like, ooh, you're not going to get a lot out of films. Yeah. You're not going to get a lot out of cinema.
This covers a lot. Of the Venn diagram of like liking film, this is a big one.
In this, nearly 3-hour epic, there's quite a lot of things in there. So I don't think cinema's for you if you don't like Shawshank.
I'd say like,
having said that, if you're listening and you're like, I've never liked Shawshank.
It's a great headline I could lift. George from Pulp Kitchen says, if you don't like Shawshank, you don't like films. No,
Then let us know. But James.
Tom, it's like those that really capture the childish imagination. So therefore, like Spielberg films that just really like give you a sense of wonder and awe of like the magic of cinema. Like recent example that we've watched recently is like Jurassic Park.
Sure.
Like I know it's not like the greatest film of all time. I think it's bloody fantastic. But like if you don't go, wow, this is like captured my imagination for something greater than the world I live in, how could you not enjoy cinema?
This is kind of dovetailing back to that conversation we had months ago from Trevor and
Yes,
from LA,
Trevor
from his
and LA.
friend who had never seen a film. You haven't
Yeah.
heard this. Go back to see a previous episode of ours where we had an emailer from Trevor in LA who had a friend who had grown up without films and
Yeah.
had never seen a film before, and they had to choose a film for him to watch for the first time.
Go
Very
and listen to
interesting.
it.
Go
It
and
was
listen
so
to it.
good. So yeah, thank you very much, Puck. This next one is from Alex. Hello, Messrs. Pulp and Kitchen.
Good day.
Of course, you're George Pulp and I'm James Kitchen.
course.
That's how it works. I'd love to say that I discovered the existence of TikTok through your podcast, but I'm afraid that, as with many other listeners, it was the inverse.
That's good.
The algorithm has thrown many of your clips my way, but it was your shared disappointment with Nope that got me listening to an entire episode, and I haven't looked back since, apart from looking back at all your previous episodes. Looking forward to more horror content from you guys in Spooktober.
Well, yes, we're in it.
My question is about outgrowing movie protagonists. Your rule of thumb about rewatching films every 5 years or so to make sure your opinion of them still holds up got me thinking about my biggest 180 in cinematic opinion. George, just remind people about your rule about 5 years.
So I said this before in a previous episode, is that whatever opinion you have on a film, however much you love it, hate it, whatever, I really believe that opinion is only valid for 5 years. Okay?
Harsh.
I'm not saying you're wrong, but I'm saying that in order to justify that opinion, you need to go back and rewatch it again because you'll be surprised at how much has changed.
Mine is Into the Wild. First time I watched it, I was a 16-year-old. I found Alexander Supertramp succumbing to the call of the wild to be incredibly exciting and inspirational. As such, I adored the film and it became a firm favourite. A few years later, I watched it again, then aged 21, and was shocked by how unbearable I found the experience. Many aspects of the film were still great, such as the varied and stunning scenery, but the film's reliance on you rooting for Alexander Supertramp was now its undoing for me. Watching this protagonist tear up his family and throw people's hospitality back in their faces didn't feel inspirational at all. Instead, it felt like a reckless selfishness. Do you have any films whose previous enjoyment was ruined because you completely lost touch with the protagonist, either through getting older or other factors? Love your work. Keep on smashing it, boys. By the way, am I the only one who tried to say yeah at the right time during the transition lounge music?
Oh, the if those haven't spotted it in the transition music, there's that one.
Yeah.
I love that. Good email. First of all, about Into the Wild. I similarly have only seen that once, and when I was 17, I remember really liking it. But I'm curious now that if I go back, I'm going to be like, oh my God, this is a nightmare. The one that comes to mind off the top of my head is Kick-Ass. And I think I mentioned this before. I'm not so sure this is necessarily about the protagonist dating, whether it's the film dating, but it's that when I first saw Kick-Ass when I was 16, loved it. All over it. I remember seeing it on the back of Empire magazine. I was like, that looks really fun. And it was great. Got on DVD, loved it. And then I went back and watched it. I'd probably seen it a couple of times already, but I went back and watched it 5 years later as part of a uni course that we were doing about adaptation. So adapted from source material and made into a film. And when I was watching it, I was like, hang on a second, what? And there's just something really off about Kick-Ass I find now. And I mean, but also, can I say that was the last time I watched Kick-Ass? That was now 7 years ago. So I'm now due another watch of Kick-Ass to really see how I think. But I remember at the time thinking, there's this whole subplot about it just doesn't work, which is that he gets beaten up in a parking lot, right?
Yeah.
And found like kind of car park, I should say, because I'm English. He gets found like half naked, right? So everyone at school is like sniggering and laughing because he was found beaten up in a car park, people think he was raped by like a gang rapes by men, right? Which everyone at school then immediately finds funny. Which then C, everyone assumes that he's gay thereof, which then D, he assumes the identity of a gay person to try and sleep with a female friend, which he then successfully does. And I'm like, hang on a minute, that's not all right. What's going
not
on
all
there?
right.
Yeah. What's going on there? Because it's not just that character has done that, but also like the film is basically like said that, oh yeah, all these people. So because people think he's been raped, he must mean he's gay.
dark.
I know it's really.
There is. I've always found that the tone of that film ever so slightly off, and like the delivery from the character's lines was almost a little bit weird. Nicolas Cage's performance is very off in that.
Yeah.
I've not thought on that. I've completely forgotten about that entire subplot.
Yeah.
But there you go. But mine is usually, I'd say I don't have a huge protagonist answer in my mind, but it's always supporting characters or things that now I'm not a kid, I view the actions of certain characters very differently, like what parents have done and the way in which, like, you know how like you never really understand your parents until you are a parent, not that I'm a parent, or until you're a grown up, or like the perspective of why someone did that to a child. Go on.
Only if you finished your point.
That's fine. Yeah.
Alex, great question, because this is time for me to bring in my weekly reminder that we will be talking about the before films at some point, and this is very relevant to your email.
Yes.
Because the before films take the same characters and revisit them 10 years apart over a 20-year period. The idea of growing up or growing out of a protagonist in one age and then maybe to another, and viewing them differently as you've got older, and how they exist in time and how you exist in time is right there, and it's one of the things I really love about those films. Just a reminder, everyone.
I almost feel like you said too much.
No, but you and I, James and I are going to talk about it because James hasn't seen it, and I really wanted him to go see it. So we're going to, once James has seen it, we're going to record an episode where we cover it all.
This is your book club homework.
This is your book club homework. Go away and watch the Before trilogy. Don't look up what they're about too much, particularly the second two. Just go and watch them. They're very short. I think the longest one is like 90 minutes, but like the second one is like 80 minutes. You'll be absolutely fine. Watch those. Come back to the book club. We'll talk about it.
Alex, I assume you'll be listening.
Yes.
This next one is from Dan. He says, "Hey fellas, love listening to the poddy still. The quality week to week continues to be incredible. Felt like a proud dad seeing you attend the Amsterdam premiere. I stopped my girlfriend and went, look, it's PULP KITCHEN when I saw them on the gram. Oh, it's like a proud father."
Yeah, I like that.
Thank you so much. Regarding the MCU show structure from a few weeks ago, just thought I'd throw in my 2 cents out there. Buckle in. Buckle?
I'm buckled.
Personally, I think the biggest issue is the structure of the shows. While some succeed in the 6-episode format, e.g. Loki, others severely suffer, brackets Miss Marvel. I also think Marvel making everything a must-watch is burning people out quickly.
Agreed.
I think a great balance would be to have 2 different structures for the shows. One being the usual 18 to 20 episode structure, like a Brooklyn Nine-Nine or The Office, for comedies like She-Hulk, where there's a new case each week, but it's ultimately a nice to have and not a must watch. The other would be what I call the Sherlock style, 1 hour and a half episodes each fortnight for 3 episodes per season as the big television event. Stories that are essential reading for the MCU, similar to how Sherlock aired here in Australia. This would reward the hardcore fans by seeing Daredevil and She-Hulk, spoilers, without harming the more casual fans by essentially giving them 3 mini-movies to watch. Sorry for the length. Keep up the amazing work. Dan, interesting idea there.
Yeah, short answer is great idea, but I don't see Marvel ever willingly devaluing it's half of its content.
Yes.
Not that they would explicitly do that, but by presenting half of it as prestigious and half of it as less so, they're kind of immediately downgrading it, and they want it all to be...
Yeah, they would want to have
if they're
everything
money,
be a must-watch.
Yes, because if they're going to spend money on it, they want it to be watched. So, good idea, though.
Yeah, I think I've always thought that people should get more experimental with length, especially seeing as it's like we've said it, you're not bound to having your half-an-hour slot on a TV channel. Yeah. Like when you put out a show on Netflix, it doesn't have to be an hour.
That's the thing about like Werewolf by Night. Like, why was that 55 minutes? Why couldn't that have been an hour and a half?
Yeah.
Why couldn't it have been or half?
But I remember when the first few seasons of House of Cards came out, and they would experiment with having like 42-minute episodes, and then like the finales were like an hour and 5.
Yeah,
and it was like, well, if the episode needs to be this long,
we just do it
because that'll be work. Yeah, interesting concept. And then just a bit basically about he's saying that.
Oh, can I just say on that point
yes.
though is that our consumer habits have actually like gone back now though, and that we don't like it when episodes are of different lengths because you want it to be consistent. You're like,
how much am I in for? Yeah. But just your point about, I also think Marvel making everything a must watch is burning people out quickly. I think that says a lot about our...
Yeah. We've covered it, but absolutely correct, yeah.
This one's from Chris. He says, "Hi guys, no need to mention where I first came across the podcast, but I've since become an avid listener. I wonder. After seeing Don't Worry, Darling, I think the review you gave was fairly aligned to my own thoughts. While I actually quite enjoy the film, I think its inability to look beyond the superficial level at the themes around gender roles and masculinity that arose from its intriguing central concept made the whole thing feel somewhat hollow as the credits began to roll. But this got me thinking, are there any films that you think have a very strong central premise but are executed poorly? The Purge and Limitless are 2 that come to mind for me. I'd be interested to hear your thoughts. Keep up the good work, Chris."
I quite like Limitless.
I like Limitless. I was going to say, I've seen Limitless within 2 years, and I think it's good fun. I think
that's definitely on a plane, though. You've definitely watched that on a plane.
No, I think it was. I think
down
me and
and took
Tally.
time
Yeah,
out
I think
with it?
we did Limitless again. I really like Limitless. I think the first half is better than the second, and I think like it could have gone so much further with its idea, but didn't. It's The Purge. They're still making those Purge movies, aren't they?
I think great question. I think my answer is one I've given before, which is a film called Vox Lux, and I'm sorry if I'm repeating myself, but I'm just going to tell it again for the purposes of this email. Which is, had this premise, which was really interesting, which is that there's a high school shooting in America in the 90s, and one of the children that is injured but survives is a 13-year-old girl. And then at the eulogy, at like the shrine to the tragedy, she sings, and she sings beautifully, and it's captured on national media, and she's whipped up and then catapulted into stardom, and cuts to then 20 years later, where she is a like global pop star and has Natalie Portman in it, and I saw that as a premise, and I thought, whoa, that's interesting. You've got different time periods, you've got something that's very topical and very but dramatic, high school shootings, you've got fame, celebrity, like wealth, all juicy, great bits to get into. And the film's an absolute car crash, but so
I'll say episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker.
Next
one.
Well, also Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Could have been great.
Yeah, it could have been great. Well, it's like a great setup for that whole thing that just fell flat on its face. Last one is from Elliot. He says, "Hello guys. Ever since I was lucky enough to catch the infamous Pulp Kitchen hot air balloon passing by the Manchester skyline, I'm happy to say that you two have been a staple in my daily commute." We had a big marketing budget.
Yeah, we blew it all on that.
Yeah. You two have given fantastic in-depth breakdowns of some of my favourite films and plenty of movie-themed games that keep me and my other half now playing along in drives.
Oh, nice.
She did not appreciate my film opposite, Noel the Unemployed.
Noel the Unemployed?
Liam? No,
Noel. Leon the Professional.
Oh
my God.
Leon, like
Noel backwards, yeah. Oh.
Wow. Good one. That's the twist. We're both like, I hope you enjoyed like hearing our brains work in real time. I thought Noel, like Liam Gallagher.
Yeah.
I thought really
Liam,
out
the
there.
professional, yeah.
My question is, have you ever stumbled on a movie on TV halfway through and it immediately had your attention, whether or not you've gone back to watch the start? When I was younger, I found Memento on TV about halfway through.
Well, that's confusing.
Was stuck to the screen for the entire film. I still haven't seen the first half, but I feel more connected to the plot knowing neither of us know what was going on. Thanks for your hard work. Keep it up. How would you have any idea about what... He does say in Memento, I have this memory thing quite a lot. But like, you would have no idea.
The thing is, not to sound like an absolute film nerd, but because from a very young age I realised like I really like films, and I the idea of like stumbling across a film and staying with it, I would never do, because if I saw anything that I would go, stop, I need to see this from the beginning so I could enjoy it.
It's not a thing I'd done since I was very young, but I would often, there would be films that I'd seen that I would catch the second half of. Like I had a rule, if National Treasure was on, I was watching it, even if it was the last 20 minutes or missed the first 20 minutes.
Right.
But a film that I started that I hadn't seen before, I can't think of something that's immediately gone.
And I'm okay with that.
Memento is a real plotty one for you to admit. Please go back and watch Memento.
Yeah,
it's fantastic. There's no other film like Memento.
Except for the Seinfeld episode that predates it that does the exact same thing.
Oh, yeah,
There's an episode of Seinfeld that is told in reverse.
Yes.
And does the whole Memento thing. But
Well, there you go. Thank you for writing in. If you want to send us your questions, your comments, and your concerns, you can do by emailing hello@popkitchenpodcast.com, and we'll read them out on the show. As always, thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. Okay, guys, as ever, let's end with a game. And I've gone away and prepped one for you, James, that I'm hoping is going to stump you.
Let's do it.
It's a new one. It is Guess the Movie based on the character's name.
Okay.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I can try.
I'm going to do it very quickly.
So you're going to read out a bunch of character names.
And you've got to
I'm
tell me
gonna
the
tell you
film
what movie
okay?
they're in.
You've got about 5 seconds before I tell you, okay?
5, okay. All right.
Okay, James. Here's the game.
Yep.
Guess the movie from the character's name.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Marty McFly.
Back to the Future.
Axel Foley.
Beverly Hills Cop.
Gustav H.
Gustav H. No, I don't have it.
Grand Budapest Hotel. Norman Bates.
Psycho.
Marge Gunderson.
Marge Guns. No.
Fargo. Maximus Decimus Meridius.
Gladiator.
Inigo Montoya.
Oh my God. It's oh my god, it's from the Princess Bride.
Oh, just V.
For Vendetta.
Yes. Roy Batty.
Yeah. No, I don't have it. What is it?
Blade Runner.
Oh,
Lisbeth Salander.
Elizabeth Salander.
Lisbeth Salander.
No.
Girl
no.
with a dragon tattoo.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
There you go.
Oh, that was good.
that's
That was
round
good.
one.
Like that. Okay. All right.
I'm trying to break it up a little bit. So Roy Batty I put in there because is the villain in Blade Runner.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, Roy Batty sounds like he does
such
your...
a normal
Yeah,
name.
it's just a normal name. It's like he does your accounting.
Batty.
Okay.
Okay.
Round 2.
Okay, let's go.
Round 2. James, you've got to guess the movie from the character's name. 3, 2, 1. Katniss Everdeen.
The Hunger Games.
Mr. Orange.
Mr. Orange.
Mr. Orange.
Oh.
Reservoir Dogs. Too
Oh
late.
my god, that really threw me.
Olaf.
From the series of unfortunate.
Frozen. Frozen. Olaf.
What's one in series of unfortunate events?
Like Uncle Olaf or whatever. But like yeah,
What?
Count Olaf.
Count Olaf.
Yeah, but this is just Olaf. There's no his count.
Frozen. Okay.
Okay. Tony Montana.
Scarface.
Harry Callahan.
Oh my god.
Clues there. Harry Callahan.
Oh, I can't got it. What is
Dirty
it?
Harry. Anton Chigurh.
Oh my god.
James.
These are just.
No Country for Old Men.
Oh, see, I just don't.
Amy Dunn.
No, I don't have it.
Amy Dunn. Gone Girl.
Oh, I no. Yeah.
Lastly, Verbal Kint.
I don't have that.
Usual Suspects. But
tricky.
there's another name in there, but I didn't
Verbal
want to spoil
Kint.
it.
Yeah.
It's tough. I wanted to make it a little bit hard for
That
you.
was hard. That was hard. Run me through those again.
Katniss Everdeen.
Yeah.
Mr. Orange.
I
Olaf.
should have got that.
Tony Montana. Harry Callahan. Anton Chigurh. Amy Dunn. Verbal Kint.
Amy Dunn is like, if it was, what
Yeah.
was it, Amazing Amy or something?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Amy Dunn is like.
Round 3, James. You ready?
Okay.
Last one. Okay. Round 3. Guess the movie from the character's name. In 3, 2, 1. Jules Winfield.
Jules Winfield. No.
Jules Winfield. Pulp Fiction. Peter Venkman.
Ghostbusters.
Snake Plissken.
Snake Plissken. Oh.
Eye patch. Escape from New York. Red. This is a very famous film.
I feel like I don't know.
Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah.
Patrick Bateman.
You've done that once for Psycho.
No, that's
Oh, sorry.
Norman
American
Bates.
Psycho. American Psycho.
Patrick Bateman.
American Psycho.
Daniel Plainview.
There Will Be Blood.
Tyler Durden.
From Fight Club.
Quint.
Jaws.
Just about. Well done. Okay. No, on the whole, I think you did.
Shaky second round. Almost recovered in the third.
Yeah. There you go.
So it's just like
The thing is, what I love about this is that when you hear them out of context, it really does throw you. Like with Roy Batty.
it's the quick fire. It's like I always am then thinking about the last one that I didn't get,
Yeah.
and then you hear the next one. I'm like, completely different world. Good one.
Thank you. I also have a bonus one we can
Oh my
do
god, a
if you
bonus.
like.
Okay,
A bonus,
let's do it.
a
Okay, bonus
game.
content today. Is this the same game?
No, this is a different game. This is
Okay.
a bonus game.
All right.
Can you guess the movie quote? Okay, sorry. James, can you guess the movie from the movie quote, but the movie quote is in Spanish?
Okay.
So
I did 1 year of Spanish.
I
in
did
year
Spanish,
9.
I did Spanish at school. It's been a while. I'm going to read them out. Apologies for my wayward
So
pronunciation.
to guess the movie from its quote.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm going to read a movie quote to you, and it's going to be in Spanish, okay?
Okay. I can't wait to do Korean next week. Really screw you.
Okay, ready?
Okay.
¿Estás hablando a mí?
Taxi driver.
Yes, well done. Muéstrame el dinero.
Is it Scarface? No.
No.
Say it again.
Muéstrame el dinero.
Of money. Something of the money. Show me the money.
That's
Oh,
it.
yes.
What's the film?
It's Jerry Maguire.
Yeah, well done. Okay. This is quite funny. Francamente, mi querida, no me importa un comino.
Say it again. Slower.
Francamente, mi querida, no me importa un camino.
Something the door of the car.
No, francamente is the key. Francamente, mi querida.
The key. No, go on.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn. Gone with the wind. I should have done the other. I need to
Okay,
translate
all right,
those as well. Okay.
Your voice, you sound like a dub, like when you watch Friends. Like, hey, Richard.
Okay. Here's an easier one. Un martini. Sacudido, non removido.
Shaken or stirred, any James Bond.
Yeah, it's Goldfinger, yeah. Veo a gente muerta.
Agente muerta. Something with dead. Veo agente.
Dead, yeah.
Say it again.
Veo a gente muerta.
No, what is it?
I see dead people.
Ah,
6 Sense.
yes, that's good. Okay.
Okay. Di hola a mi amigo Pequino.
Say hello to my little friend.
Yes, yes, very good. I love this one.
I don't speak Spanish. Can we just confirm? I did a year when I was 14.
Señora Robinson, ¿está tratando de seducirme?
Oh my God. Say it
Again, I'll do it slower. Señora Robinson, ¿está tratando de seducirme? The clue is Señora Robinson.
Go on.
Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you? The graduate.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll give you a couple more. Oh. Soy el rey del mundo. Soy el rey del mundo. Break it down. You can do that. Soy, I am,
yeah.
el rey,
The Ray.
el rey, no.
The sun.
No, del mundo.
I don't know.
What's del mundo?
The day. What is it? I don't know.
I'm king of the world.
Oh,
Titanic. Okay.
All right, yeah. Sorry.
All right, I'm going to give okay, last
Did you translate these or is it a sporkle?
It's a sporkle.
Okay,
thing.
yeah.
Okay. Lastly, I'm going to give you one that is just so hard, but
Okay.
I'm hoping to get it.
All right.
El mejor truco que el diablo ejecutó fue convenciendo. Oh, sorry, excuse me there.
Say again, sorry. Start again.
El mejor truco que el diablo ejecutó fue convenciendo el mundo que él no existo.
You got the devil non-existing.
Yes.
You got
Yes. You're halfway there with that. El mejor truco que el diablo ejecutó fue convenciendo el mundo que él no existo.
No, I don't have it. What is it?
The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world he didn't exist. The usual suspects.
Ah, that's very good.
I apologize to any actual Spanish speakers out there
Who
for
were
my,
probably
for my
screaming at the
slightly
whole thing.
butchered pronunciation, but I saw that quiz on Sporkle.
That was
Thank you,
brilliant.
Sporkle,
I love
okay?
that.
I thought this will throw him.
yeah.
Anyway,
I'd love to do like a German one.
it's fine. Yeah, sure. Go
be
for
great.
it. Yeah, go on, test me.
Oh my God, that was amazing.
Anyway,
Thank you
those
very
are the
much.
games. Thanks for listening, James. Do you want to begin?
Thank you very much for listening to this episode of Pop Kitchen. Don't forget, we post new episodes of this show every single Wednesday.
That's right. And we also provost.
We
What
provost.
is that?
That's
I'm
not
a
word.
provost.
Yeah.
No, we also put out other content throughout the week as well. So, for example, that spoiler discussion of Don't Worry, Darling, look out for that on the channel. We might have some other reviews going out as well. And, of course, as ever, follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, like and subscribe and recommend us as well to friends. We really appreciate it.
Yes, please do.
Spread the word and keep your emails coming into hello@popkitchenpodcast.com because we love hearing them. So
Please like and subscribe to all of the channels. Stop what you're doing. Go and
literally stop. If you're
follow
driving,
everything.
pull over right
Yeah.
now. Get
Hard
out.
brake. Handbrake turn.
That would be most
Makes a huge
appreciated.
difference. Please do it.
Thank you as ever for listening. Until next time.
See you next week.